Stop whatever you are doing right now, because what I am about to lay out is not speculation, not theory, and not a casual reading of headlines. It is a reconstruction of events confirmed through multiple sources inside the Senate Republican Conference, and it explains how Washington was pushed to the brink of the most serious internal Republican revolt since Watergate. At 7:43 a.m., Wednesday morning, 3 senior Republican Senate leaders walked into Mitch McConnell's office for what was scheduled as a routine leadership meeting, the kind that happens quietly and leaves no trace. Yet 47 minutes later, those same leaders walked out, and within 2 hours, the political ecosystem in Washington was on fire. This was not about tax rates, spending levels, or policy nuance. This was about senior Republicans arriving at a conclusion they had avoided for nearly a decade. Donald Trump had become ungovernable, and continuing to pretend otherwise now carried existential consequences for the party and for the institution of the Senate itself. The spark for this moment did not come from cable news or public speeches. It came in the dead of night. At 2:17 a.m., Donald Trump placed a call to Senate leadership and delivered a demand that stunned even seasoned Republican operatives. He ordered an immediate vote on what he called the Emergency Powers Expansion Act, attaching a blunt ultimatum: pass it by Friday, or he would personally campaign against and primary sitting Republican senators in their own states. There was no attempt at persuasion, no discussion of substance, only threat. For years, Senate Republicans had endured pressure and intimidation, but this crossed a line. It was no longer political leverage, it was coercion. Then, at 6:30 a.m., the mood shifted from unease to outrage. Leaked audio began circulating among senior Republicans, an internal recording of Trump stating privately, "I do not need the Senate. These people work for me." That sentence mattered more than any speech or tweet. It reframed everything. This was not a president angry with Congress. It was a president declaring Congress subordinate. When that audio reached Senate leadership, the reaction was not fear, which had governed Republican behavior for years. It was fury. By 7:43 a.m., an emergency meeting was convened inside Mitch McConnell's office. Present were McConnell himself, John Thune, John Barrasso, and John Cornyn, 4 men representing institutional power, political pragmatism, party loyalty under strain, and raw electoral reality. McConnell played the audio. He played it again. According to one source, no one spoke. The silence was described as suffocating because every person in the room understood what they were hearing. This was a declaration of irrelevance aimed directly at the Senate. To grasp why this meeting became a breaking point, you have to understand how Trump has controlled Senate Republicans for the last 8 years. That control was never ideological. It was never about conservatism or policy alignment. It was about fear, weaponized methodically and enforced through example. Every Republican senator understands those examples intimately. In 2020, Mitt Romney voted to convict Trump in the first impeachment. Trump responded by branding him a disgrace, encouraging party censure, and isolating him politically. The message was clear: defy me and you will be punished. In 2021, Bill Cassidy voted to convict in the second impeachment. He tried to repair the relationship. Public humility, consistent loyalty, repeated defenses. None of it mattered. When Cassidy stopped being useful, Trump backed a challenger anyway. The lesson hardened. Loyalty is not protection. It is merely a temporary delay. Then in 2023, Kevin McCarthy negotiated a debt ceiling deal Trump disliked. Within weeks, McCarthy was gone. The message became unmistakable. Anyone can be destroyed at any time for any reason. That system worked until senators realized the threat never ends. Fear functions only as long as obedience offers safety. And this week, 3 forces converged to shatter that illusion. First, electoral math changed. The 2024 Senate map is brutal for Republicans: 23 Republican seats versus 11 Democratic seats. Internal polling shows Trump association is now a net negative. In states like Montana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, Republicans tied directly to Trump trail by 6 to 8 points. One senator summarized it bluntly: "I can defend conservatism. I cannot defend chaos." Second, the Greenland crisis crossed from embarrassment into danger. NATO allies were alarmed. The defense establishment revolted. A retired four-star admiral described it simply: "This is not strategy. This is instability." Senate Armed Services Committee members understood that threatening Allied territory destabilizes the global order. Third, legal pressure accelerated. Criminal cases advanced, emergency stays were denied, trial dates hardened. One senior Republican lawyer warned privately that the party might be nominating someone who could be in federal custody by November. Together, these forces transformed defending Trump from an uncomfortable calculation into political suicide. Inside McConnell's office, John Thune broke the silence first. He said plainly they could not defend the rhetoric, the emergency powers demand, or the threats against their own members. Barrasso pushed back, voicing the fear everyone carried. Trump destroys people who defy him: Romney, Cassidy, Cheney. What made this different? McConnell leaned forward and delivered the sentence that changed the trajectory of the party. "Trump is going to destroy us anyway. The only question," he said, "is whether they fall defending Trump or defending the institution." Cornyn followed with electoral reality. Texas polling had him down 4 points. Everyone tied to Trump-adjacent chaos, and voters wanted governance, not explanations about invading Greenland. McConnell then proposed a response that was not symbolic but structural: a joint letter rejecting emergency powers expansion, leadership refusing to campaign with Trump unless rhetoric moderated, and full financial backing for incumbents targeted by primaries. He demanded an answer immediately. Thune said yes. Cornyn said yes. Barrasso hesitated, then said yes. 4 votes, 4 commitments. The structure holding the party together cracked. What followed unfolded with stunning speed. By 9:15 a.m., McConnell was calling senior senators. Romney, Collins, Murkowski committed immediately. Then came the shockwaves: Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio. Graham, Trump's loudest defender, privately said he would not defend threats against allies or the dismantling of Senate authority. By 10:47 a.m., a 5-page constitutional letter was drafted, declaring the Senate could no longer enable conduct threatening constitutional order. By noon, 12 signatures were secured. When Trump learned of the letter at 11:30 a.m., he erupted. Calls followed. "You are dead to me," he told Graham. "Then I am dead," Graham replied. McConnell did not answer Trump's calls. By early afternoon, the split became visible. House Republicans rallied behind Trump. Senate Republicans stayed silent. The letter leaked intentionally. Media coverage exploded. Donors signaled support for institutional stability. Conservative media fractured. Allies abroad issued warnings. Democrats chose silence, letting the fracture widen. By nightfall, 17 Republican senators were aligned. 18 would be enough to block emergency powers. Overnight, polling leaks showed Trump endorsement swinging races 6 points against Republicans. Senate staff threatened mass resignations. Corporate America warned funding would stop. NATO allies issued public rebukes. Trump escalated. Rallies, threats, calls for protests. McConnell quietly secured Democratic support to block emergency powers outright. This moment matters because it marks the collapse of fear as a governing mechanism. Collective action replaced isolation. Institutions reclaimed authority surrendered by choice. 3 paths remain: retreat, stalemate, or rupture. But one fact is settled. Trump demanded absolute authority, and the Senate said no. That no transformed loyalty into liability and set in motion a reckoning that will determine not only the future of the Republican Party, but the stability of American democracy in the days ahead.